everyone. Welcome to RadioLUMS. Today we have a very, very special guest with us who is also an alumni, and he has some very vital information to share with us that I think all of you are going to find really, really useful. Affan, would you like to introduce yourself further?
Thank you. Firstly, thank you for having me. So I'm Affan Cheema. I'm a marketing manager at Nestle. I've been with Nestle for the last 13 years. So I've worked on different categories, multiple brands. Some of the brands that I worked on were doing super well when I joined. Others were not. Those that were not. I tried to turn them around and put them on trajectory, and that has brought the greatest joy to me in my professional life. I've tried to create engaging brand experiences. Some worked, some did not. Those that did work, they resulted in awards. So we won 2 YouTube Leaderboard Awards in 2 consecutive years, and some local international awards as well.
You used
Company
really,
awards
really
as well.
big words there. You talked about trajectory, about like setting them on the path of career. You talked about like designing strategies and all of that. So most of us who think about marketing, we have a very rosy or vague idea of what you guys do. So would you like to like elaborate on it more, what exactly your day-to-day looks like, what your actual job is?
Yeah. So it usually starts at 8:30, ends at 5:30, but these are just communal hours in which the company expects you to be largely in office for all the physical interaction that is required. But generally we follow a very flexible arrangement. So you can, come at your own convenience and leave at your own convenience. Also Monday to Thursday, they're working from office. Friday is work from home. Even if you want to come to office, you can still come to office, but it's work from home. And Saturday, Sunday are off. But these are the modalities as far as timings are concerned. But I think more than that, as a marketing manager or as a brand manager, you think about the impact that you can make on the lives of your consumers, communities, and more importantly, the planet. So we bring it to life through different marketing campaigns. But what we really enjoy doing is that how can we use the reach of our brands to make an impact. So every brand in Nestle has a brand essence or brand ethos, as you might have studied in your academics. But what that means is that, and every brand essence has a sustainability promise. What it means is that every brand exists to solve a problem in the society. Right. So, for example, water works towards the conservation of this precious resource, water, and also for plastic reduction, etc. So that's what we are really passionate about. To be a force for good in this country.
So day-to-day problem solving and sustainability, these are some of the things that you work at.
Yes.
So when you're designing maybe a campaign or a project is coming out, how does your work day look like during that time? Like if there's a project that you have, how are you dividing work? What is that work?
Right. So it starts with the consumer. We look at what the consumer insight is. What is the consumer wanting to do and is not able to do? And how can our brand solve that problem? Right. So that's the business issue or background driven by a consumer insight. Then we make a strategy that what are the 2-3 main things that our brand would do to address that issue. Then comes the creative execution part, in which you get in touch with your creative agency, the brand manager, the marketing manager, the creative agency. They sit together and say that, look, this is the problem that we're facing, or an opportunity that we have in front of us. That this is our brand strategy. This is what the brand stands for. This is what the brand personality is. Sustainability promise is. What does the brand believe in, and what is the purpose? What does that belief compel us to do as a brand? And then they come up with a creative idea. How do we come up with a communication, a campaign that addresses that issue, right? And the last part is results. So executing it to perfection, and then hoping for good results for the business and for the brand.
Spoken like a true SDSB major, and which I'm correct, you are.
Yes.
You studied at LUMS, you did your MBA from LUMS. So tell us something about your time at LUMS here.
Yeah.
What were some of the activities or initiatives that you were part of? Some of the skills that you might have picked up that have helped you in your professional life? If there were any existing skills, how did you work on them during your time here?
Yeah. So I had a great time at LUMS. I mean, apart from the fact that I developed a great camaraderie with my classmates and my friends, and we're still friends. We still play. Some of us still meet up every every couple of months. Some of us, we play golf together now. But other than that, I also had the pleasure of being taught by some of the veterans of STSP and LUMS. LUMS started from STSP and then later grew into what LUMS is now. So Dr. Ihsan, marketing from Dr. Ihsan, strategy from Dr. Jamshed, then finance from Dr. Mubashir, who's also head of the disciplinary committee, was the head, and then Dr. Jawad, Dr. Adil, the list goes on. But I think two things that generally STSP professors try to instill in the students. One is strategic thinking, and the other one is leadership. I think they were quite inspiring in that sense. And also, I think because of that, some of my subjects were that I liked. I think marketing strategy would be one, organization behavior pertaining to people, and the third one would be economics. Economics, because it's very, very applied. You see it in your every life, both micro and macro. So that's the padhai wala part. I was also quite into sports. So I'm a sportsman at heart, because I believe that sports is a great teacher.
If you say cricket now, then that would be the most Pakistani thing you could say.
So cricket, I think everybody, every Pakistani from when I was growing up, 90s, every late 90s, every boy, if you picked a boy from the street and said, what do you want to be when you grow up? He would say two things. The first one would be a fighter pilot. The second one would be a fast bowler. And that was primarily because of Shoaib Akhtar. And then also CM Wakar, they were also there. So yeah, cricket, I'm good at cricket. I've played cricket a lot, but I think, like I was talking to you before we went on air, that I picked up tennis here. I used to cross the tennis court every day for my classes, and I said, why not? So one of my friends used to play, and he said that, why don't you pick it up? I mean, it'll help you stay in shape. And the coach was really good. By the way, the courts were probably still they are one of the best in Lahore. They were so well maintained and of international standards and everything. So I picked up tennis. I picked up swimming as well. So these were two things that I did apart from my studies. I also used to write articles on marketing. So something that I was passionate about, and I felt it to be a good way of expressing myself. So I wrote articles for Aurora. And also Mashable. And it gave me a chance to express my worldview and also look at different perspectives coming from different people.
Aurora and Mashable, these are two names that you said. These are organizations' websites. How did you come across them as a student, reaching out to them, getting your work published there? What was that like for you?
Yeah, so one of my friends, when I was in A-levels, she used to be an editor or worked for an editor at Dawn News, and she asked me that somebody who used to write articles was not available. So he said that this is a topic. Would you want to give it a shot? I said sure, I'll do it. I did it, and it was a small column. I mean, obviously I was a kid. I was in A-levels, and my article got published, and also my photo got published. So that gave me that kick of doing it. But then I got busy with the other stuff, studies, sports, etc. And then I went back to that hobby. So Aurora is a marketing magazine, quite popular in Pakistan. So many STSP graduates, while they're studying, generally they would be reading two things. One is Aurora, the other one is Business Recorder. So every economics teacher, he suggests that you should start reading Business Recorder. So that's how I picked it up.
Yep. So there's definitely like a connection then between LUMS and professional opportunities. So your time at Nestle, was there any connection between your networking at LUMS here and then how you got to Nestle then?
So a lot of things that I learned at LUMS, I was able to apply at Nestle. So it's not just the hardcore fundamentals of marketing or strategy, but also more than that, I think leadership and people. And also I think how you're able to interact with people coming from different backgrounds in the organization, right? So while you're at LUMS or in school, you have this option of hanging out with friends who are let's say like you, but you don't get this choice in office. You have to be compatible with everyone. But I think what LUMS does very beautifully, and I feel does not get credit for, is that it has a very diverse cohort. LUMS gets a lot of flack for being, giving children a very sheltered view, children being not connected with the world, or Pakistan particularly being burger bachas, all these things. But I tend to disagree with it. This program of NOP, National Outreach Program. I mean, they scout people when they're, let's say, in class 10, if I remember correctly. They scout students in rural areas, right? Students who have the potential to make it big, but they need a sponsor, and LUMS is that sponsor. So they pick people from, let's say, Gilgit, from Ziyarat, or other far-flung areas, and then they bring them to LUMS. So it's a win-win for both. So they get the exposure that they were missing in their part of the country. At the same time, other LUMS students, they also get to know about the situation that they are living in. So that point that I mentioned, that LUMS, they are connected with what the issues are.
So they're picking the right people is what you're saying. Thank you for clearing our name there. But when it comes to picking the right people, you'd have plenty of experience because you are involved in the hiring process as well at Nestle. Could you walk us a little bit through that? What is it like? What are some of the things that you are looking for in the candidates that come to you? Any skills? The leadership is something that you've vehemently spoken about. What else are some of those things that you look out for?
Yeah, so I think the two types, mainly functional understanding and also your leadership skills. So obviously functional understanding is important, and during the interview discussion, you're able to see if somebody is good at it or needs, let's say, more improvement. But broadly speaking, 2-3 things. Firstly, is able to understand the brief, so generally what we do is that we give them a case study, just like you get in here in LUMS. And it's a series of assessments. So there's initial screening, there's an online assessment, there's a case study in which, so the first round is with the marketing managers. They do the interviews, they shortlist a few people and recommend it to the directors, and they make the final, and then they finalize the empty batch from that, for example. And so the first thing is that if they understand the brief or not, understand the business situation or not. The second one is, are they able to strategize based on the available information that they have? And the third one is creative execution. Is their creative execution or the creative idea original or not? Is would it make people stop scrolling on their mobile, right? And lastly, collaboration with other departments. So I once was interviewing a candidate, very solid guy. And he, in the middle of the interview, he said something like, so he was aspiring for a management trainee for marketing. And he said, I asked him something about finance. And he said that finance, yes, the finance people would do it. It's not in my scope, right? And because, and there's not just one person interviewing him, there's a panel. So I had somebody else interviewing him with me. And we asked him that, look, right, it's going to be somebody else, but how do you plan to ensure that let's say the product that you're marketing is profitable? What are the areas that you would look for? And he said, no, it's not my my area of interest. It's not my within my sphere of influence, so I won't be concerned with it. So this doesn't really score so well compared to a situation in which I asked somebody about, we just gave them a case, and she said that she talked about different functions as well. So she was also aspiring for marketing, but she said that on the supply chain end, I would ensure that this would happen. Finance side, this profitability I need. HR side, I need recruitment. So that shows that person, obviously, he does not have to hire people herself because she's going to be a marketing resource, but she's able to pull the right strings as and when needed. So that's a good example compared to not so good example. That's one. Also, just to give you a feeler about how the interview is like. So the interview is very much is as casual as, let's say, we are right now. So it's not like somebody puts you under a microscope or So it's because that's the kind of environment that you would get if you get hired. So that's your everyday routine. So I think over there, I remember one interview, one candidate came in, and obviously she had nerves, and it happens sometimes. And I knew that she, when she started, she wasn't her best because she was nervous. She had, butterflies in her stomach and everything. And I said that, look, you've come this far, you've played 2 rounds, so it means that there is something there. You must have done something right, right? So maybe you can take a moment, take a couple of minutes, sit down, relax, and we won't deduct time. We'll give you extra time. So we just sort of eased her nerves, and we talked about life, outside that interview. And then I asked her that if you're
comfortable
now to get back in the groove, and she said yes.
God, I really hope that by the time I get to the interview process, I have someone like you sitting in front of me. Really, really hope for that, guys. Pray that Affan is there behind the scenes, rooting for you.
Everybody would be like me, because we're also calibrated, and in fact, not even calibrated. That's how life is at Nestle. And the reason we give them that environment during the interview, because that's the environment that they would get if they get selected. That's how the environment or the culture of Nestle is.
So I guess that's why you've stuck with the company for 13 years.
Yeah.
And you've always been on a solid upward trajectory, which is very, very admirable. So your work environment, you've said, has contributed a lot to why you've stuck with Nestle, and especially amidst this job hopping culture. So how have you avoided that? And what other incentives or advantages do you think people have when they come to work at a company like Nestle?
Yeah. So I think so there are 2 approaches. One is to build a career within one company, and the other one is to switch companies. And I think both are right, given the situation that you're in. So what is the objective? So people choose a company for 2 reasons, largely speaking. One is a match between their values and the organization's purpose. That's one, right? The other thing is career growth. They want a match, but they also want to grow in the organization. And if you're able to get both these 2 things, so assuming that the match is there for both situations, both options that we discussed, switching companies and building a career in the same company. So let's just talk about the career growth. So if your career is growing in one company, you don't tend to look outside a lot. Obviously, you are connected with your friends who are in different organizations, and it's important to do that, to have that perspective as well. What are other companies doing different from you or better than you, and you try to emulate that. But Nestle, so for example, Nestle has about 18-20 brands, Nestle Pakistan, right? And every brand has a structure. So depending on the complexity of the brand or the size of the brand, so you have assistant brand manager, you have brand manager, senior brand manager, marketing manager, senior marketing manager on certain brands, and then a business head. So that's what is generally a business team. And every 2-3 years, given that you are performing well, you are rotated. So your life at Nestle never gets monotonous. It doesn't stagnate. If you're performing well, you also get promoted. And also when you switch brands, it's like switching a company, really. When you go from one brand to another, you come across a different target audience. Therefore, consumer insights change, and your challenges change altogether. And then you obviously have to think with a fresh perspective, and that is what keeps you going. That is what at least kept me going so far. But for some organizations who, let's say, are not so complex, do not have a lot of brands, their people, they do, after performing some time, they look for other opportunities to diversify this experience. So that's also not wrong. But like I said, I never needed
Nestle
to look
every
out.
day is a new adventure then?
Why not?
So variability and adaptability are some of the skills that you've extensively spoken about too, and I think your life reflects that too. At undergraduate level,
Yes.
I think you did engineering,
Yes.
and then you switched to something like marketing. So when you're looking out for candidates, do you look for people with varied backgrounds, or do you think it helps more if a candidate has had a consistent interest or a consistent professional education?
Mm-hmm.
So which of these do you think is more beneficial?
Yeah, I think so. Nestle stands for diversity and inclusivity. And diversity, when I say diversity, we go not just at the surface level things. So diversity in terms of color, race, ethnicity, religion, etc. We go a step deeper. So difference of thoughts, that's also a diversity. If I'm saying something and somebody in my team, she disagrees with me, that's not only respected, it's also encouraged. Right? So that's one thing. And we want a diverse group of people to be working with each other. So I think we try to go for the best candidate, and we don't put a filter of any of these things that I just mentioned. So naturally, the people that come on board, they are from diverse backgrounds. So for example, just look at LUMS for that matter. Even other universities in Pakistan, I think they're doing quite well in terms of maintaining diversity and upholding these values. So, and we have to pick a few people from these universities. So naturally, the group that comes, they are diverse. As far as the academics are concerned, so there's a mix. So there are a lot of people who, let's say, had a different background in undergrad, and a different in, let's say, masters. So I did my undergrad is in engineering, and there are a lot of people like this in Nestle. In fact, someone very senior at Nestle, two, three people I know had MBBS as their undergrad, and then they did MBA and came to Nestle and were immensely successful. Then there are also examples who had, let's say, BBA or BSc honors, etc., and they maintained that line, and then did, let's say, MBA, or joined Nestle right after bachelor's, and they've also been very, very successful.
So according to what you've said, it doesn't really matter whether or not you've had a consistent education or whether or not you've had something different going on for you. It doesn't matter as long as you are willing to switch it up or experiment. You've also spoken about like the hierarchies that exist within the workspace. Any like fun incident there where you've had like a difference of opinion? How do you come to consensus then? Or any other situation during hiring?
Happens all the time. Some, and that's a good thing. Some people are quite possessive about their brand, and they're quite invested in somebody else's brand as well. So when we are having a discussion, and we have to work with different people, so it's not just one business team, let's say, who's working on dairy, working on Nido, is only responsible for Nido. Other stakeholders would also have a say on Nido who are not on Nido, right? So it happens with people who are senior to you, and I think that's something that you LUMS also helps you develop. So let's say an agency has come and has shared a concept of a new campaign that we asked them to come up with, and the senior most person in the room, he has given a view, right? And for somebody who's junior, a junior may disagree with that person. So how does he now share his or her point of view, or differ from his point of view, right? So that's how you have to respectfully state your point of view and substantiate it with certain facts and figures, or at least with an argument, at least with a thought process, that I understand your point of view, but I have a slightly different point of view because of this and this reason. So it happens all the time, and that happens in formal meetings, happens informally as well. Even for example, so this Oppenheimer or Barbie debate,
on that note, though, who do you support?
I'm an Oppenheimer guy, but my wife's a die-hard Barbie fan.
So Barbie GF, Oppenheimer boyfriend. I think that's the perfect pairing. Best of both worlds. So any instances from your time at Nestle, like when you were selected, anything in your interview process that stood out to you, and then when you started working in your initial years, any challenges that you faced and then how you overcame them? Yeah.
So it happened. So when we switch from one brand to another, it's usually done through a succession planning. So every brand has a succession plan. So just to, for your audience. So that's how it works. So for example, marketing manager of Nido, right? For every position, there are 2-3 candidates in line, right? So for example, if this person who's currently on this position, marketing manager Nido, if he moves, who would replace him immediately? Who can replace him 1 to 2 years from now? Who can replace him 3 to 5 years from now? Right. So it's generally decided, and it's also decided based on performance and potential, right? So it's very transparent, by the way, in that sense. Very fair, very transparent. but you still do have a discussion with the new line manager. So you go there and you say that this is the problem that I've understood on the brand, that the brand is currently going through, or an opportunity that I see on the brand, and this is what my view about the brand, of how the brand should go forward. This is the strategy that I have in my mind for this brand. So I was going to join this position, a certain brand at Nestle Milk Pack, and it was going through a tough period. And I remember the discussion that I had with him, with my my going to be line manager, and he said something very, very powerful to me. He said that, Affan, many people go through their entire careers and they don't have a story to tell. Right? This is your chance to write a story. And it really struck me. Not that I was in two minds, but it's easier to choose a brand that is performing well compared to choosing a brand that is not performing so well. But even though I was going to say yes anyway, but it really struck a chord that and everybody has a life story, and if you just do routine things, you won't have anything powerful to sell.
So tell us, Affan, then, what is your life story? What have you had to sell in your experiences? You've mentioned your YouTube awards too. What about those projects do you think stood out to audiences internationally and locally? What do you think was the cause for that success then?
I think the fact that it was rooted in consumer insights. So it was during my time on Milk Pack, and what we had in mind. So we were market leaders back then, and we wanted to strengthen association of dairy with Ramzan. So Ramzan is a high dairy consumption month, like dairy drinks, lassi, or even other meals like dahi vade, for example, or chaat, for example, or paratha, which uses butter. So Milk Pack has butter, Milk Pack has milk Pack has yogurt, Milk Pack has cream. So we thought that, and that's one of our passion points, the passion points of our consumers, food. And in Ramzan, it just gets dialed up. And we wanted to be in their mind when they think about dairy in Ramzan. So we wanted to build that association. And the idea that we had was that we'll come up with a 30-day menu. And the recipes would be a fusion of traditional Ramzan dishes and continental. Right? So how do you give that twist? So partner with different chefs. So Chef Sadat, for example, or Nat can cook. What we did differently was that, this Masala TV and all these cooking channels. Yes. We didn't want to become that. We did not want to become that because the audience, our target audience, that they do not like this. It seems outdated. And they would say, we know this kind of show, but that's how our mothers used to, learn recipes. So they want, for example, Instagrammable content. So firstly, it has to be Instagrammable. If it's not Instagrammable, it's not for me. That was the insight. The second one was that it has to be short and crisp. So a lot of intercuts. This attention span thing, that a millennial or a Gen Zs would be even lower, and Gen Alphas that we're talking about. So they have the attention span of a goldfish. So if you're able to catch their attention in the first 5 seconds, you're good. If you're not, they'll just scroll away. So I think because it was a big shift from the traditional way of recipe content to a type of content that was very much relevant to the target audience, I think that is why it helped us win an award.
So you were able to tap into local traditions. It was unique. It was something that was quick to digest. So all of these things played a role in your success then. Lastly, Affan, is there any word from the wise that you'd like to give to any aspiring job-seeking students from LUMS? What is the one piece of advice you'd give to them as they step into their professional lives?
Yeah. I think, so I mentioned the 3-4 things that I look for as a hiring manager, and I think that's generally true for a lot of people. I mean, they may have certain things in and certain things out, but generally that's what we want, what we expect a person to be. I think, but overall, positivity. I personally like people who are positive about things. So for example, this half empty, half full glass, right?
Yes.
If I give somebody a completely empty glass and I say, what is this? What do you call this? And if he says that it can be made full, I would give him 10 out of 10. Right? So that's the kind of positivity that at least I look for. And the reason I say this is that, look, there is no place that is perfect in this world. There is no person that you would come across who is perfect in this world. You have to look at the brighter side. And but that is not to say that you start living in, going towards escapism and forget about reality. You have to be grounded in reality, acknowledge what the problems are, and but more importantly, try to think about how you can overcome them. So I think this approach is generally what I look for. Yeah, I think
that seems like a pretty good little tidbit for people to look out for. And on that note, I think we will bring this interview to an end. Thank you so much for your time and your expertise. I am pretty sure our audiences will benefit from it to the greatest extent.
I hope they do.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.